Hello everyone, and finally welcome back to my channel, and this time for good. I know that I made a video last week saying that I'm gonna be back to normal, and then I took another break but now I'm back. Unfortunately my mic's not working right now, just full transparency. This is how it goes sometimes. Sometimes the camera is dead and sometimes the mics are not working, so I really hope you can still understand me okay. And I'm so glad to be back, and we actually want to dive right into the topic as we always do, and from now on I'm gonna upload as usually, so let me know all of your questions as always below. Also, thank you so much for getting back to me about the digital program. I was listening to you and I'm creating it right now, and it should be available in like 1 to 2 weeks, so stay tuned for that. And again, let's dive right into the topic as we always do. And today we want to talk about, is recovery a scam and the biggest recovery myth? So as you all know, I've had an eating disorder for a long time. I am fully recovered, and when I say I am fully recovered, I am speaking of my own definition of full recovery. Because in fact, being fully recovered means something completely different for each person, and I see that with all of my clients on a day-to-day basis. For someone, full recovery maybe means never ever having a single thought about food, about calories, or their body again, which of course, just to be completely transparent here, you will have thoughts about your body like any healthy person has, but not to the extent like you have with an eating disorder, and also not to an extent where it's disturbing you like when you have an eating disorder. And for someone, maybe it means managing their eating disorder or being able to, step away from it to gain some food freedom, but it might still be in, within a different definition than for somebody else. But I've also been asked the same questions over and over again, and so today I want to go over those questions, those myths, and answer the question if recovery is a myth, if it's a scam or not. So first and foremost, one of the things that I've been hearing a lot is you need to go all in order to fully recover. And I'm actually going to make a whole other video about that topic because there is so much to say. But my answer to that question is yes and no. So for those of you who are not familiar with the term all in, within the recovery space, going all in oftentimes refers to letting yourself eat whatever you want to, taking a whole break from working out. It oftentimes also applies to people who experience extreme hunger or post-starvation hypophagia, and meaning listening to that and allowing themselves to fully listen to that extreme hunger while resting. And while I agree that this approach can be super helpful, in fact it helped me a lot in my recovery, this was the main approach that I was working with after, trying a few. All in my personal definition, actually means going all in your personal recovery, meaning taking the steps that it needs for you to go all in and that it needs for you to recover. And that doesn't have to be listening to your extreme hunger, because some people don't experience extreme hunger. For some people, listening to their extreme hunger from the very first day on is way too overwhelming. For some people, it's way more about making maybe some smaller steps. It's about challenging their movement behaviors without making a hard stop. Again, in my case, it was really helpful to go all in cold turkey and to stop movement completely. I know it sounds extreme to a lot of people, and I do think that for some people that is definitely the right approach. While for other people, it might mean learning to have a minimum of movement and learning how to, move their bodies without being obsessive. So going all in the sense of giving your all, standing up again when recovery knocks you down, or rather when the eating disorder knocks you down. Giving it another try the next day, even if you don't want to continue. And also continuing after your body changed. I know that a lot of people out there struggle a lot with the changing body, especially if they experience extreme hunger. They might experience overshoot weight, but either way, I know how challenging it can be to be in a body that changed a lot after having an eating disorder that praised being skinny for such a long time. And all in that case also means to continue, to not go back, to give yourself the allowance to listen to your body, and to maybe even try to trust your body, even though I know this is one of the hardest things. The second recovery myth is I'm gonna start recovery and it's gonna get all better. Now, don't get me wrong, I've definitely seen people that started recovery and that either had some kind of meal plan or maybe even had extreme hunger and went all in the sense that they listened to it and they immediately felt better. I am currently working with a few clients that experience that and that like constantly tell me, hey, I'm already feeling so much better. I know that I still have a long way to go, but I am feeling better. I have more energy, I have less brain fog, and that's amazing. And there is nothing wrong with that, because as a coach, I can assure you that they are not in quasi and that they're taking the steps, and there are just some people where it goes like that. But there are also a lot of people where it becomes way worse first, and where it might even feel like my eating disorder was the way better option. It feels like I've given up my eating disorder and now I'm stuck in this recovery. I might feel like I can't go back, and my eating disorder actually was way better. Some people might even feel like they were healthier during their eating disorder, and no amount of like rational reassurance and rationally going over all the facts why they were not healthier can help in those moments, because if they feel like I'm more immobile, I'm sweating more, I am out of breath more, which are all, just so you know, so common quote-unquote side effects of recovery. That does not mean that you're weighing too much. That does not mean that your body can't handle the weight, because trust me, I've definitely been there, and I'm also going to make another video about that part. But I just really know what it feels like to feel like, damn, I gave that up and now I'm in this bigger, unhealthier body and I feel way worse than I felt before. And the reason why I'm sharing that is not to scare you, but it is so that you know that this, unfortunately, is very common. But what is also common is that once you push through, and unfortunately that can take a certain amount of time. For some people it's several months or several weeks, and for some people like myself, unfortunately it lasts way longer. But if you give yourself the chance to push through and to still continue, even though it feels so wrong, and even though your head is telling you all those nasty lies, and your eating disorder is telling you all those nasty lies, then you give yourself the chance to actually get to a point where you can start to really accept yourself, and where you can start to redefine health for yourself, and also where you will feel better. Because our bodies are coming out of this malnourished state, and yes, they are changing, but the problem is not the change in itself, the problem is the state they were in before. And so coming from that state, it can oftentimes feel so bad, and I'm not trying to play that down, because again, I know what it feels like. I know what it felt like to all of a sudden felt less energy and weaker and more brain fog and less agile and, you know, less able to move. I felt like I can't even do all the movements that I did before. But I can also assure you that the body needs way more time than you think to catch up. And if you allow the body to have that time while also working on underlying beliefs, on your self-worth, on the behaviors, on, you know, so many other things that oftentimes come up in recovery, then you set yourself up for success. The next myth, and I'm gonna call out the whole recovery scene, especially the content creator scene here. Please don't get me wrong. As I said before, every recovery is very individual, and so is, of course, the story from each content creator who talks about their own recovery. But I see certain patterns that I just want to speak about today. And to be honest, what I'm going to say is probably not going to be what you want to hear. But as I just said, every person's story is different. And that means that it's not right or wrong to go back to working out, to go back to the gym after a certain amount of time, after your recovery or at a certain stage in your recovery. But that also means that it's not right or wrong to maybe not wanting to go back to the gym. So hear me out. I know that a lot of recovery coaches, content creators out there can be very polarized. I also know that there are a lot that are a little bit more in the middle. And for instance, Dani, who I interviewed a couple of weeks ago, is one of the people who is definitely has such an individual approach. And so she's definitely one of the people who's more in the middle. But if I work with a client, I will never tell them, oh, you have to go back to the gym after a certain amount of time. But I will also not tell them, no, you're not allowed to go back to the gym. Because as Dani said in the interview, we are not the movement police. So, in my personal recovery, I tried to go back to the gym after, I want to say 1.5 years or so of being in, no, actually it was a little bit less. See, I don't even remember. But I tried to go back to the gym and it really backfired. And I thought I was at a good place and I thought I can finally start to move my body again. But the underlying thoughts and the underlying wish of losing weight again just like creeped up so quickly and became the main focus again. And so I had to do a hard stop for over another year. I think for, another 1.5 years or something like that, before I then eventually started to go back to the gym. I also work with people that like to have some kind of movement in their day, and depending on the state they're at, depending on what kind of role movement played in their eating disorder, depending on if it had an impact on the eating or not, depending on if I feel like it's obsessive or not, that's okay, and I will work it out with them. But there are also people where I'm very aware that, hey, right now you should probably take a break from that. And so I guess the whole myth is that there is a right or wrong way. What I do find concerning is content creators who turn into full-blown fitness creators again. And again, every person has their own life and they are allowed to go their own road, but just, the kind of people that that tell you, sport saved my life, sports helped me to recover because now I can eat because I work out. That's exactly the mentality that I do not want my clients to have. Because we do not want to have that mentality of, oh, I can eat as long as I work out. It shouldn't be connected in a way where you feel like you have to make up for food or where you have to earn your food. And again, I'm not trying to come at anyone. This is just my very personal opinion and my very personal approach. And I do know that a lot of my clients actually like that approach. And if somebody would not like that approach, that would also be okay for me. Again, I'm not saying that you cannot work out or that you have to work out, but that's exactly what I'm saying. I don't have a fixed opinion on that because everybody's eating disorder story and everybody's recovery story is so different. And myth number 4, and the last one in this video, is that intuitive eating is the only way. Now, when it comes to intuitive eating, there's also a lot of different opinions as to that. Intuitive eating is not a fixed term, and intuitive eating, in fact, even means something different for every person, just as balance means something different for every person. I have my very personal definition of intuitive eating and of balance, and I am able to eat like that, to eat balance intuitively as to my own definition. But it doesn't come with any food rules, which is the main reason for me to choose intuitive eating, because I don't have any food rules and I don't want to ever have any food rules again. And it also doesn't come with restricting anything, cutting out anything, having a very fixed plan. But this is, again, just my personal way. Intuitive eating, in fact, is not even possible for most people who are just coming out of an eating disorder, because their intuition would probably tell them to not eat if they, haven't even started yet. So I do have some clients that will tell you, well, if I would just listen to my intuition, which of course is the eating disorder voice, and then also the fact that their body's adjusted to not eating or to eating very small amounts for a long amount of time. So listening to that would probably mean not increasing anything and therefore not really changing anything in their eating disorder behaviors. That wouldn't really work for a lot of people. Intuitive eating also can be very, very hard for people when the fear constantly takes over, when the underlying beliefs take over, when the body image is super bad. Well, if we are being precise, I would even say that listening to your extreme hunger is actually the closest to intuitive eating, because extreme hunger is there for a reason. Your body is sending out those signals. It's not binging, it's not being disciplined, it's not swinging to the other side or having another eating disorder. It is there for a reason, and so listening to that, in my opinion, could actually be seen as intuitive eating, but even that can be very, very hard for people to always follow without making up for it. And also, I understand why for some people it doesn't feel like intuitive eating. So long story short, there are way more reasons why some people might have issues with intuitive eating. Some people who are neurodivergent, for instance, sometimes have issues with their hunger cues. Some people just don't get the hunger cues, or they are on medication that suppress hunger, or, you name it. And so intuitive eating is not the only way to recover, and especially not in the, very old conservative definition of it. At the same time, if you have your own definition of it and you say, some people actually remember a time before their eating disorder and they say, that's what I want to eat like again. Before I had an eating disorder, I ate this and this and this way, and I would like to get back there. That's definitely possible, and for many, many people that can be the way. But again, intuitive eating in the classic sense doesn't have to be the only way. And in fact, a lot of people actually need some more structure in the beginning. They might need meal plans in order to make sure that they're getting enough food in. They might need some help to figure out, okay, how can I challenge my fear foods, and how can I make sure to really, really, not be led by my eating disorder again. I really hope this video helped you guys. Let me know in the comments as always what you think. Let me know if you have any other questions. Just a little reminder, I know that I asked you guys 3 months ago for that. I am so ashamed. I'm so sorry. I have to get back on top of my stuff, but there is just so much going on in my life right now. But I will definitely interview my boyfriend soon, who is a personal trainer, as many of you know. And I have just written down all the questions that you had for me, or had for him rather. So if there's any other questions, let me know in the comments and I'll add them to the list, and we're gonna have that interview soon. And we're gonna have a lot of other videos soon as well. And I will see you guys in the next one.